Now excited to be joined by a very special guest. It is your algorithm's favorite college football analyst. It is Adam Breneman. You haven't been described like that before, have
That
you?
was good. That was good. Expecting that. I was wondering when I heard your I was wondering where you were going with that, but that was good.
Yeah, yeah. The algorithm loves it some Adam Breneman. Look, you have cranked out so many videos over the course of the last couple of years, but I was trying to do the math one day of trying to be like, how many videos do you do in a specific day, like Monday through Wednesday, when you're not doing one of your other million jobs that you have in college football? But can I guess? Do you do like 12 videos a day?
Yeah. So if we're counting across every platform, it's probably more. But as far as like original pieces of content, because what happens is, as you know, like I'll film a video, make it, and then that video will go on 5 different platforms: Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, across all there. So I would say like if of just original pieces of content, probably in like the 7 range, 6 to 7. I don't know if we've hit 12, but it feels like that because if you see a video on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, it's all just one piece of content. It gets posted everywhere for maximum distribution. But yeah, I've definitely taken the approach of the like the quantity approach in content, and just kind of believing that every time you put something out, it is a chance that people see it, that it goes well. And I think it's hard. Like you don't really know if content's going to be good or bad. Like I have no clue. Like I posted a video that I thought was like not that entertaining a while ago, ended up being one of my best performing videos, still going now, millions and millions of views. And it's like if I wouldn't have had the quantity, I might have never got to that video, would have never put that out. So it's hard to really tell what's going to go well. So I just say, let's just post a lot and let the algorithm dictate what's good and what's not.
It's funny because when you were on 2.5 years ago, it was right before you were about to really dive into the content game on the college football
Yeah.
side. And correct me if I'm wrong here, you essentially set out on this plan to be like I don't want to call you an older millennial. You're an older millennial. You're born in 95. You count as
Yeah.
millennial, but it's like a Gen Z strategy, so to speak. And it kind of
Yeah.
fills a unique space. Like that's, you kind of want to be like the millennial Gen Z Herb Street. Am I wrong?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I would say, I always say that like my mission is to be Gen Z's college football analyst. And I think that means meeting Gen Z and millennials where they're at, which is social media, remove as much friction as possible with how you reach them. So it's TikTok, Instagram, it's YouTube, it's long form shows and content like podcasts, which I do, as you know. And yeah, I mean, I think that when I got into this space, you see a lot of polished broadcasters, people who took the TV first approach, like a Joel Klatt, a Kirk Herbstreit, uh, a lot of these guys that have had a ton of success, but no one has really dominated or owned that social media Gen Z audience. And now as audience goes, as attention transfers from really like television to phones and tablets and streaming, I think that's going to be important. Like who controls that audience? Who does that audience recognize as the face of college football? And that was kind of the demographic I went out to try to reach, and it's been successful. I still think there's a lot of other people doing a great job that are trying to hit it as well. And I've started to venture more, as you know, into the TV space now as well, and try to do both. But it's been fun. It's been kind of I set out on that path of 2 years ago, as you mentioned, and to see kind of where it is now and all the opportunities that have come up, and how even like I was just on a call with a coaching staff today, preparing for my game this weekend, and one of the offensive coordinator says, Adam, I love your podcast, your interviews with the coaches, I love your content. When I go call a game, like it's cool when like I walk on the field pregame to see the coaches and stuff, and someone in the student section, like they're not saying like, oh, that Adam Breneman, the football player, like no one's saying that. It's like, oh, it's the guy from TikTok, right? It's the tight end from TikTok. And it's funny that like seeing that shift and kind of seeing it pay off has been super fun.
Let's start with something that I've been wondering about for a bit here. And look, I told you this. I've told everybody who listens to the show this. I'm not a James Franklin guy for one reason or another. You are, obviously. Sell me on why Penn State is actually a national title contender and not just a team that's going to go 10-3 and lose to the only elite foes that it faces this year.
Well, I mean, we'll see how the rest of the season goes. I mean, I think when you look at Penn State, this season, everything's gone the way that they've wanted it to. Now, and I think deserving of that number 3 ranking in the country. When you look at the fact that they beat USC, they beat a top 25 Illinois team, they beat West Virginia, what wasn't supposed to be an easy game to start the season, and have played pretty good football. Now, there's also concerns. I mean, that USC game could have gone the other way pretty fast. I mean, there was a point in that game where it didn't look good. Penn State needed 2 fourth-down conversions and 2 plays by Julian Fleming and a field goal by their kicker to win that game. Illinois game was I think a tie game or close game at halftime. So there's concerns and things that need to be cleaned up. The run game against USC wasn't good enough for Penn State to win ball games. But I think the exciting part about the USC game was that it was Drew Aller's coming out party a little bit. It was kind of a grow up moment for Drew Aller. And I thought the best part of it was that was Drew Aller's best game he's played at Penn State. It is his best game. Now, he threw 3 interceptions, really 2 plus a Hail Mary interception. But I never thought that his best game at Penn State would be when he throws 3 picks. But Drew Aller grew up and found a way to win that game and made some huge throws down the stretch. And the concern has always been, can Drew Aller be the guy that can go win football games? And he proved that he can against USC, who I think USC is still a pretty good football team. They've lost some close games, and it's been tough. I almost feel bad for Lincoln Riley a little bit with how tough those games have been. They're a good team, and Drew Aller found a way to win that game. So now, I mean, they got a tough Wisconsin game. Then it gets real. I mean, you got Ohio State, Washington on the schedule. Maryland's playing some decent football. So it's going to be tough, but I think now the expectation for Penn State fans is that Penn State makes the college football playoff. And now with the expanded playoff, I really think that means that Penn State's either got to find a way to host a first-round playoff game, win a first-round playoff game. Like, there has to be some kind of, just being – while fans will be happy, just being the 12th seed in the playoff and losing – or the 11th seed in the playoff and losing in week 1 of the playoff isn't going to be good enough. Like, Penn State has to compete. But I do think that for everything we've seen, that they're well on the way to doing that this season.
You talked about things are going to get real after Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I love me some Camp Randall at night. You love yourself some Camp Randall at night. I seem to remember a certain 60-yard pass from a Christian Hackenberg, 2013. I don't remember who was on the receiving end of that, but yeah, it was a nice play, nice long play. You worried about that one this weekend for Penn State? Because it feels like if a top 5 team is going to go down, that's a likely candidate.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that play. It's like every time Penn State plays Wisconsin, that like people post that play, and I'm like, And so I saw someone complaining, like, why do we post this play from Adam Breneman's career so much? And I'm like, well, it's the only play from my career that you guys could post at Penn State. It's the only one I made. But no, I think Wisconsin's a good football team, and Luke Fickell. I mean, everyone slept on Luke Fickell for a while now. Everyone said. I heard the chatter. I mean, after week 1 and week 2, I mean, people were saying Luke Fickell can't figure it out at Wisconsin. They don't play physical. It's not Wisconsin football. But Luke Fickell in year 2 at Cincinnati, that's really where he turned the corner at Cincy and turned that program around. They started winning a ton of football games. Now you blink an eye, and Wisconsin's got 5 games left, and they're 5-2. And they're playing good ball. Their defense has given up like 16 points in the last 3 games I just saw. I mean, some crazy numbers, and they're back to playing that like physical Wisconsin football brand of defense. And for Penn State, James Franklin's really good at getting the guys to focus one game at a time and think in the moment. But I mean, man, if there was ever a time that there was going to be a slow start or a slip up, I mean, having Ohio State, which is going to be the game of one of the games of the year in college football in 2 weeks at home at Penn State on big noon kickoff. I mean, this is it. So like, this is going to be this will tell us a lot about Penn State. This will be one of James Franklin's toughest coaching battles of the year. I mean, to go out and have to travel to Wisconsin to find a way to keep everyone focused and take care of the task at hand against a Wisconsin team that's getting hot at the right time.
Who would get your Heisman vote if you were voting today?
Oh, great question. I just had this debate with someone. I as of right now, I would go with Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward, and being with having Miami undefeated, he is single-handedly the reason Miami is where they're at. I mean, their defense is atrocious. He has been the way that he creates with his legs, the numbers he's put up, how poised he is in the pocket, his arm strength and his arm talent. I would vote Cam Ward right now for those. How he's had the best individual performances other than maybe Ashton Genty at Boise State, but I'm just not ready to give a Boise State player the Heisman Trophy vote right now. Now, if Boise finds a way to win the Mountain West and make the playoff, I think that's where it changes for me a little bit. But as of right now, I'd take Cam Ward for finding ways to win games, being undefeated, and having the best individual performance for quarterback.
One of those other guys that probably feels like he's going to be part of the conversation because he's got that Ohio State win in his back pocket is Dylan Gabriel. And, you see the way that game plays out and feels like, okay, maybe that's going to be a matchup that we see later in the season, Big Ten championship. Who do you think is a bigger threat to the SEC's elite, Ohio State or Oregon?
Yeah, I still think that Ohio State wins the Big Ten. I think Ohio State will win the Big Ten championship and beat Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. But that's not to take away from Dylan Gabriel and Oregon. I think what Dan Lanning's done is phenomenal, and they won that game. And Dylan Gabriel, I mean, the best part about Dylan Gabriel in that game against Ohio State was that when his team needed it the most, he made a Heisman play. Like, he made plays. He ran in for the touchdown. He made throws. He took care. Now, he struggled with turnovers, which is my concern with Dylan. And like he's more experienced and better than that. He needs to clean that up. But to me, Ohio State still has the best roster in the Big Ten. I don't see Will Howard making the mistake that he made, the multiple mistakes at the end of that game that he made. I think he's going to learn from that. I really like Will Howard. I love the ability Ohio State has to run the football with Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. I mean, people forget, like, Chip Kelly loves to run the ball. Like, everyone thinks about Chip Kelly in the air raid, right? And throwing the ball around the spread offense. So not the air raid, the spread offense. Chip Kelly wants to run the ball, and they have the ability to do it. And when they can, it helps Will Howard a ton, and then they can distribute on the play action RPO game. So I still think Ohio State wins the Big Ten. I think they'll be the biggest threat to knocking off whoever ends up winning the SEC when it comes to playoff time.
Counterpoint, in my totally unbiased opinion, Indiana part of the mix, just throwing it in there. Just saying, look, if they don't get held out of the Big Ten championship again, I'm just saying it could be a very interesting path for the Hoosiers come playoff time. As an unbiased Indiana grad, I just feel the need to kind of throw
That's right. I forgot you're an Indiana grad. I mean, unbelievable what Kirk Cinetti's done. I was there this offseason, did a visit with them, an interview with Kirk Cinetti. It was awesome. We were like 5 minutes late for the interview. We had a time schedule with Coach Cinetti. Something happened with the microphone, so like we weren't ready. Like, we were there, but the setup wasn't done by the time he was going to come in for the interview. It was like a noon interview. Get there at 11, film at noon. So like 12:05 comes and Coach like walks in, and we had warned him that we were running late. And as you can imagine, like he's funny. He's also like extremely, what's the word? Like, doesn't really show a ton of emotion, and especially when he's like angry or you can tell he's annoyed, he gets like sarcastic with his comments. And he was just chirping us the whole time, like, Cam, you're making the head coach wait for your interview. I mean, we let you guys come in here, you're not even ready. I mean, just all that kind of stuff. And he was like joking, but also kind of like scary in how he was saying it. So after that, I talked to our video crew. I'm like, we need to charge the microphones. We got to make sure our cameras are set up. But he was great. The interview was fun. He was awesome to be around. I'd never met him before, but just what he's done and the confidence he's given that program and the way he's gotten Curtis Rourke to play his best football of his career. Really cool to see also. Like, there's multiple ways to build a program in college football, but like to go get a guy, and this is my favorite way to get a quarterback, like get a guy who's done it at a lower level in the MAC, that's performed at a high level, that can play when he can play his best when his best is needed, and then develop him a little bit and have him play in the Big Ten. I mean, that's the formula, and it's working at Indiana. And Curtis Rourke, when Kirk Cinetti has Indiana, possibly at 1 loss, 2 losses at the end of the year, and competing for a Big Ten championship. I mean, it'll be one of the greatest calling of your own shots that we've seen with that. What he said at Big Ten, it was a Big Ten media day or his press conference where he said, "I win, Google me." So it's been fun. It's got to be fun as an Indiana fan to be following it, I'm sure.
Be honest, you would, a couple too many Long Island iced teas at Kilroy's the night before.
Yeah, it was my fault. I was struggling. I was still. The video crew was there. I was just lollygagging around that morning.
Bloomington gets the best of us, man. It absolutely does. Whose future do you feel better about? And you can take this any direction you want. You can go short term, you can go long term. Whose future do you feel better about between Michigan and Alabama's?
Great question. I feel better about Alabama's future because I'm a Kalen DeBoer believer. What he did at Washington and the body of work he has in his career as a head coach speaks for itself. He's won everywhere he's been. He won at Sioux Falls. I couldn't tell you where that is. He won at every level, D2, D3. And then he did it at Washington with with talent, but not as much talent as he's going to have at Alabama. And listen, this season hasn't gone the way they wanted. Also, have had some unreal moments this season. I mean, that first half performance against Georgia, they ran them off the field in the first half of that game. I also think that he's made some pretty good hires. I like Nick Sheridan, his offensive coordinator. I think his defensive coordinator, forgetting his name now.
Cade Womack,
yeah, Cade Womack from South Alabama. I think that's a really good hire. Now, yes, there's issues to clean up. The discipline needs to get better, but Kalen DeBoer wins football games. He knows how to build a program. He's got the best general manager in the game in Courtney Morgan. They're going to win at Alabama. My concern with Michigan, and I like Sharon Moore. I mean, I've known Sharon Moore for a long time. I think he's a great football coach. He hasn't been a head coach. And I think one of the biggest mistakes of the offseason in college football is Sharon Moore not going out and getting a transfer portal quarterback.
Yep.
The fact that he didn't go out and identify that as an issue and say we need to bring someone in here. I mean, we're the defending national champions. We can't go get a quarterback from the portal that can win us games. And the fact that we're talking about Alex Orji and Jack Tuttle at Michigan is not acceptable if you're a Michigan fan. Like, those should not be our options at quarterback. And the fact that Alex Orji didn't go like win that job right away this offseason tells you there was concern about Alex Orji from the start. I mean, the fact that he wasn't like named the starter from day one and it was a battle, these coaches should have seen that. And I don't know what goes on behind the scenes, and maybe they tried to get a quarterback and couldn't. But that will be Sharon Moore's biggest mistake. I think he'll reflect on that and say, I missed that, and this team needs a better quarterback. And the issue is, like, everyone says, okay, well, Michigan wasn't explosive and dominant on offense when they had J.J. McCarthy at quarterback. But what happens is that when you don't have an explosive quarterback and you can't throw the football, your margin of error in every other part of the game becomes so small. You can't make mistakes on defense. You can't turn the football over. You can't give up explosive plays rushing. So and Michigan's not quite good enough at all those phases right now to make up for the lack of offense they have. And that's my concern. And I think Sharon Moore will figure it out. But right now, if I had to say next season who's going to be better, I would say Alabama, I mean, with a lot of confidence.
Team that didn't have to go out into the portal and get a quarterback, LSU. You're high on LSU. Yeah. Do you think the Tigers win this weekend at A&M and win an SEC title? How do you kind of see the rest of their season playing out?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think that the first thing is it's fast college football world's changed. Think about LSU after week one and what we were talking about with USC. I mean, it was just crazy to think about the difference now that we're, 8 weeks later. I mean, I was on a show talking about USC's back and their defense is elite and Lincoln Riley's coach of the year. And now Brian Kelly can never figure it out. And now to be in the situation LSU's in where they just beat Arkansas, they beat a really good Ole Miss team and Jackson Dart in overtime, to win some of those games has been impressive. The one thing about Brian Kelly teams is they seem to always find a way to get better throughout the season. Like they improve and they become a better team. I remember watching them. I watched the LSU South Carolina game back. I mean, I watched that game and I was like, man, LSU does not deserve to win this game. I can't believe they won, right? It was like one of the sloppiest football games I've ever seen, but they've taken strides since then. Their offensive line has played better. Their defense has played really well. And then Garrett Nussmeier has done what he's had to do to win football games. He's thrown 6 interceptions this season, so still needs to clean up some of that. But I think LSU has proven that they're now a top, 7-8 team in college football. If Garrett Nussmeier can continue playing the way that he's playing and manage the game, allow Caden Durham to run the football well, which his kind of coming onto the scene has been great for LSU and their offense. I see LSU winning against Texas A&M, and then the rest of the season for them is once they get past A&M, it doesn't get any easier. They got Bama, they get Oklahoma, who's not playing super well. They have Vanderbilt, who knows? No one wants to play Vanderbilt right now. So again, it gets real for them, as a lot of teams it does in the SEC. But also, SEC is wide open. I mean, we have no clue what's going to happen, right? I mean, you covered it close to anyone. I mean, you got a bunch of teams that could be right there fighting for it. I mean, is like, is Ole Miss really out of the picture? Is a lot like, no one really knows right now where this will end up. It's going to come down to these last few weeks.
I buried the lead here. You played at UMass, All American at UMass. I know your timelines didn't line up, but
Yeah.
UMass AD Ryan Bamford. I am convinced this man could solve all the world's problems after he got Mizzou to come up to that home and home. It's the single most impressive home and home agreement that I have ever seen an athletic director at this level of college football get. Please tell me anything you know about that man. Do you know his favorite color, his favorite soda? I need to find out more about Ryan Bamford.
Well, I love Ryan Bamford. He was there when I was there, so I know Ryan well. When I was transferring in, he was a big part of. I met with him when I was deciding where I was going to transfer. I mean,
Of course he was.
He has what's that?
Of course he was. Of course he was there.
Yeah.
I forgot that he was there not in the AD role beforehand. So of course he was part of the recruiting pitch, and he got you to. He was probably handing you the pen to sign on the dotted line.
Exactly. He's like, please come on in. Yeah, but he he's awesome, very smart guy, and I think one of the best moves he's done is now getting UMass in a conference in the MAC. I mean, that needed to happen. I was telling him that years ago. I'm like, dude, we have to be in a conference, even if it's the MAC, right? Like any conference, just get UMass in a conference. But yeah, I mean, seeing Missouri walk into McGurk Alumni Stadium when they're used to playing at
Gillette,
Gillette. I mean, it's just crazy. So. It is certainly impressive. Now the game didn't go very well for UMass, but it is cool. One of the things about being independent is you do get to play a lot of cool teams, right? Like when I was at UMass, we played South Carolina, Mississippi State, Florida, Tennessee, a lot of these cool places. Just because we're independent, we were trying to get some money for our school.
Okay, speaking of money, have they hit you up asking you for some money, for those facility upgrades? Because, buddy, they are needed. It's bad.
Yeah. So the UMass football facility is actually pretty nice. The stadium, McGurk Alumni Stadium, not so much. And it's been improved. It was even worse when I was playing there. It was funny because when I went from Penn State to UMass, I would have buddies come visit for the games at UMass, and everyone would be like, oh my God, like, this is where you're playing? Like, imagine the difference between Penn State and UMass. And so they have not yet asked for money. I'm sure they will soon or someday soon, or at least ask me to help raise the money. But listen, I do think that at UMass, I get asked this more than people would probably think, considering it's like UMass football. But a lot of people ask me about UMass. I think it's an interesting story with like how much they've struggled to make the transition to FBS, where other programs have done it with relative. I mean, look at James Madison, right? Like other programs have done it relatively easily.
Texas State, that's
Texas State. Yeah, I think that overall, UMass is in a tough place from a geography recruiting standpoint. The resources are okay, but not good enough to compete the way James Madison's are and the way Texas State is and things like that. But at the end of the day, man, like winning fixes everything, and UMass has to find a way to win a couple ball games. Like if UMass won 4 games, the entire mood would shift, right? Everything would be different. It's now easier to get yeses on resources. It's easier to get yeses on recruiting spend. It's easier to get yeses on NIL, easier to get yeses on changing the stadium. If you build it and you win, people will come. The fans will come. So I hear the complaints from people about how hard it is to rebuild a place like UMass, but at the end of the day, you got to play football, and you have to win some games. Like you can't have one win every season and think that it's ever going to change.
Yeah, if all else fails, just line Ryan Bamford up at tight end and let him do everything on the football field. And
he's in good shape. I mean, yeah, he's like 6'3", 6'4", good-looking guy. He can play tight end.
Last one for you. You just started the Ball Club for all things Tennessee content. Tell our listeners about that and why specifically Tennessee, kind of given your background.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you bringing it up. I mean, so I'm a co-founder and chief media officer at a company called the College Sports Company. And what we do is we build athlete-driven media networks at schools around the country to drive more NIL revenue for their collectives. As you know, man, in college football, every school and collective has a revenue problem. They got to find ways to drive more revenue to pay their players more money, whether it's through revenue sharing, like the cap that's going to be paid by the school, or outside of the revenue sharing, true NIL that these collectives are coming up with. We're trying to find ways to make more money. And and NIL has gone from now being donor funded, just asking the donor for $1 million every year. That was great for year one, but when you ask your donor for $1 million and then you go 6-6 and you ask for it again the next year, he's like, I just gave you $1 million and we won 6 games, right? So the donor funded model's out, and now these collectives are trying to figure out how to drive real revenue. And our bet and our belief as a company is that these collectives and schools have to become media companies to drive that money. And what we do is we set up a media network at these schools with the collective. We're doing it at Tennessee with the Vol Club to launch Rock Media, which will be the official media network of the Vol Club at Tennessee. And we'll have shows with current players on the football team, current players on other teams around Tennessee athletics, former athletes at Tennessee, fans, everything you imagine, events, social media content. And we produce really high quality content for the fans. And then, like any media company, we monetize it through sponsorship, advertising, merchandise sales to events, and then drive the money for NIL at Tennessee. So it's what we're doing around the country. We have media networks at South Carolina called 1801 Media, Louisville called Floyd Street Media, Penn State called State Media, and now Tennessee called Rock Media. So it's been exciting, been fun. I think we're really starting to change the way that schools and collectives are starting to think about NIL and what it means to drive real NIL revenue.
Awesome stuff. Really, really appreciate the time. They got a million things going on. If you want to follow Adam's work, the algorithm will probably find it for you.
Wait, can I ask one question to end this thing? I mean, you asked me who my Heisman pick is. I wanted to hear who yours is.
Oh, if I'm voting today, Travis Hunter's getting my vote.
Really? Okay.
Football unicorn, to do the things that he's doing at this stage with all the eyeballs on him, every single play, can't take a play off. Bad film is going to be seen by everyone with how much national attention they're getting. He would get my vote. And honestly, I know this goes against what you were saying. I probably put Ashton Genty at 2, and it helps that he had 200 scrimmage yards against Oregon. That's a big, big part of it. To do that against the Dan Lanning defense, man, like that's no joke. So I'd go with that, and then Cam Ward would probably be my third. But
and then what? Dylan Gabriel at 4, probably.
Probably Dylan Gabriel at 4. It's weird to be at this stage of the season and not feel like there's a true SEC contender. Diego Pavia would be. I mean, let's be honest.
It's exciting though. I mean, it's wide open, man. I mean, who knows? I mean, even one of these SEC quarterbacks could have a great last 5 games of the year and be right in the mix as well.
Yeah, Jalen Milroe was my preseason pick. Not looking as hot. Obviously, crazy things can happen down the stretch. I don't think he's going to get enough of those opportunities, but it's going to be a fun race. I'm glad to actually get into some of these nuanced discussions and stuff where it feels like we have a lot of resources at our disposal. So I'm sure we'll get a chance to talk about it again at some point.
No doubt. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Man. Thanks for having me on.
Man.
See ya.